Pick up your little toy card and get out of my hotel before I call the police. The words sliced through the golden air of the lobby, stopping conversations mid-sentence and making the pianist falter on his keys. The grand chandelier glittered above, reflecting the polished marble floor, where a single Centurion black card now lay face down, its titanium edges catching the light like a blade. Ethan Cole, the duty manager of the Crestfall Grand, smirked as he ground his leather shoe down on the card. The twisted satisfaction in his eyes was unmistakable. His voice carried loud enough for the dozen guests in the lobby to hear. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from and make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's story is one you won't want to miss. This is pathetic for everyone involved, he sneered. You think flashing a fake card is enough to pass for one of our guests? Where'd you get it? Off some street corner? A pawn shop? Newsflash, you don't belong here. The young receptionist at his side, Chloe, eager to impress, laughed nervously. Maybe I should grab a rag, she said, lips curled. That card probably has germs all over it. A few guests chuckled under their breath, embarrassed but entertained. Others turned away, pretending not to see the scene unraveling. It was easier that way. And through it all, Naomi Carter didn't move. Her suitcase stood beside her, upright and silent, like a witness. She was dressed simply, sneakers, faded jeans, a cream blouse with sleeves rolled at the elbow. Not a single designer label on her body. No glittering jewelry to signal wealth. Just a woman calm, still, her eyes focused on Ethan as though he were a child throwing a tantrum. Ethan leaned across the desk, lowering his voice just enough to lace his words with venom. Let me save you the embarrassment, sweetheart. This isn't your world. Not this lobby, not this hotel, not this clientele. There's a budget in 3 blocks down that caters to people like you. Try there. Naomi finally spoke, her voice steady and low. People like me? Don't play dumb. Ethan spread his arms, gesturing to the chandelier, the velvet chairs, the gilded elevators waiting to whisk real guests upstairs. Take a good look around. You're out of place. End of story. Chloe folded her arms. Honestly, she should be glad we're not calling the cops right now. A man in a gray business suit, sitting with his laptop near the bar, muttered, Maybe you should at least check the reservation she says she has. Ethan's glare snapped to the man. Sir, please. I've been running this hotel for 12 years. I know a scam when I see one. He turned back to Naomi with contempt curling his lips. And you, ma'am, are wasting my time. Naomi's gaze flicked briefly to the card crushed beneath his heel, then back to his face. Her expression never shifted. Calm, unshaken, unreadable. Return my ID, she said simply. Ethan pinched it between 2 fingers, held a beat too long, then slapped it down on the counter. Here you go. Now leave before I really lose my patience. Security, he barked suddenly, snapping his fingers. 2 men in black suits appeared from the hallway, moving with heavy, practiced steps. Their expressions were blank, their presence towering. This woman is trespassing, Ethan announced. Escort her out. Now. The guards flanked Naomi, not touching her, but close enough to corner her space. Ma'am, one of them said, voice stiff, we need you to leave. On what grounds? Naomi asked, her tone unchanged. Manager's orders, the guard replied after a pause. Naomi studied their faces, then turned her head slightly toward Ethan. For the first time, her voice sharpened, not loud, but cutting through the air like glass. Thank you, she said. You've given me exactly what I needed tonight. Ethan frowned, confused by the remark. But Naomi simply lifted the handle of her suitcase, slid her Centurion card into her pocket, and walked toward the revolving doors. The guards trailed a step behind, but she didn't resist. She didn't hurry. She didn't stumble. Outside, under the awning, the rain had begun, soft, silver threads slipping down onto the street. Naomi stood tall, dialed a number from memory, and held the phone to her ear. After hours legal came a brisk voice. Please state your name. Naomi Carter, she said calmly. Priority 1. Connect me to Victor Shaw. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end, then hurried clicks. Seconds later, a deeper voice answered. Naomi? What happened? I was just refused a room at the Crestfall Grand, Naomi said, her words measured like chess moves. Manager humiliated me in front of guests. He threw my Centurion car to the floor and stomped on it. Security escorted me out. I want the audit report, CRM log, and surveillance footage pulled immediately. And I want the general manager, legal counsel, and 2 board members on a video call in 30 minutes. Tonight, I'll be waiting in the lobby conference room. Victor Shaw, chief operating officer of the parent company that owned the Crestfall and 15 other luxury hotels, didn't hesitate. Understood. Are you safe? Naomi's eyes flicked to the glowing lobby beyond the glass doors, where Ethan still leaned on the counter, like a king in his little kingdom. She almost smiled. I'm fine, she said, but they won't be. She ended the call, adjusted the strap of her handbag, and walked back through the revolving doors with the unhurried confidence of someone stepping onto a stage she already owned. The lobby noticed her return. Conversations dropped. Guests turned in their chairs. Chloe's giggle died in her throat. Even Ethan, smirk still plastered on his face, blinked at her audacity. Naomi stopped in front of the desk. Prepare the conference room, she said. Ethan laughed. Actually laughed. The conference room? For you? Lady, you don't even have a reservation. Naomi tilted her head. Then call your general manager. Tell them the owner of this hotel requests a meeting. That sentence landed like a hammer across marble. Head snapped toward her. A ripple of whispers spread. The owner, someone muttered. Ethan's laugh faltered. The owners don't just... He cut himself off, but the lobby filled in the blank on his behalf. Don't just walk in looking like that. Naomi smiled thinly. Black? A woman? Dressed simply? Alone? Ethan's face reddened. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant, Naomi said softly. She didn't wait for him to argue. She walked past the desk toward the glass-walled conference room by the bar. Guests and staff alike watched her take a seat at the long mahogany table, place her suitcase beside her, and open her laptop. Through the glass, the entire lobby could see her. But only Naomi knew that within minutes, the screens would light up with her team, her lawyers, and her board, while Ethan Cole's empire of arrogance crumbled in front of everyone. Ethan Cole leaned against the front desk, smirk tugging his lips, trying to convince himself he still controlled the room. But the truth was slipping through his fingers. Guests whispered. Staff stole glances toward the conference room where Naomi Carter sat alone, framed in glass, every movement deliberate. Chloe whispered to Ethan nervously. She's bluffing, right? She can't really be the owner. Ethan hissed back. Of course she's bluffing. Owners don't walk in here with thrift store shoes and demand sweets. Watch. This will all blow over. But it didn't. Within 10 minutes, the massive screen in the conference room flickered on. Faces appeared. Victor Shaw, the COO, sharp in a dark suit despite the late hour. Dana Liu, general counsel, and 2 board members, Gregory Marks and Evelyn Price. Their expressions were alert, solemn, waiting. Naomi sat tall at the head of the table. The glass wall meant the entire lobby could see her, but the screen was angled so only she could see the board. That was no accident. Victor's voice filled the speakers, calm but commanding. Naomi, we're here. Tell us what happened. Naomi folded her hands. At approximately 8:40 p.m., I arrived at the Crestfall Grand with confirmed reservation under my name. Ethan Cole, the manager on duty, refused to honor it, threw my Centurion car to the floor, stomped on it, and summoned security to escort me out. All of this occurred in front of guests and staff. I was told to get out and directed to a budget better suited for people like me. Gasps rippled across the lobby. Chloe paled. Jamal, the bellhop, stiffened by the elevators, his jaw tight. Ethan's smirk cracked, but he forced a laugh. Wait just a damn second. This is insane. You're seriously going to take her word over mine? I don't care if she has you all on video chat. This is some kind of setup. I was doing my job. Naomi turned her gaze on him, calm and cutting. Then explain why you refused to check my confirmation email when I offered to show it. Ethan blustered. Because scams happen every day. Do you know how many people try to game our system? I have to protect this hotel from fraud. Dana, the general counsel, spoke from the screen. We already pulled the reservation logs. Ms. Carter's booking exists. Confirmed through our own website at 6:12 p.m. payment method verified. The system errored when it synced to property level, but the confirmation is valid. She had every right to check in. Victor added, and the security footage corroborates everything Naomi described. Ethan's mouth opened, closed, opened again, his face flushed crimson. Naomi's voice dropped lower, silk over steel. Answer me plainly, Mr. Cole. When you saw me, dressed simply, not wearing the uniform of wealth you expect, did you decide I wasn't worthy of this hotel? That's not. Ethan started, but Naomi raised a hand, silencing him, because the moment I walked in, you weren't protecting the hotel. You were protecting your bias. The words hit harder than any shout. Guests in the lobby shifted uncomfortably. Chloe ducked her head, shame coloring her cheeks. Jamal looked down, but the corner of his mouth twitched with vindication. Naomi turned back to the screen. Victor, Gregory, Evelyn, Dana, I like this on record. Ethan Cole, duty manager, engaged in discriminatory conduct, violated company policy, and humiliated a paying guest. Evelyn Price, the board member, leaned closer to her camera. Naomi, are you saying you want us to suspend him pending investigation? Naomi shook her head once. No, I want him fired. Tonight, in front of the very people he tried to humiliate me in front of. Because this isn't about one bad night. This is about a culture that let him believe his behavior was acceptable. The words rang out across the glass. The piano in the corner had gone silent. The pianist was watching too. Victor's voice was steady. As chair majority owner, the decision is yours, Naomi. If you want termination effective immediately, it's done. Naomi's eyes locked on Ethan. He looked small now, smaller than he'd ever looked in his own hotel. Mr. Cole, Naomi said, her voice slicing through the silence, you are terminated effective immediately. Collect your belongings under security escort. You are barred from re-entering this property. Your conduct is inconsistent with our brand, our policies, and basic human decency. The guards, who had escorted Naomi earlier, now turned toward Ethan. This time their faces carried no smugness, only discomfort at their earlier role. Ethan's eyes went wild. You can't do this. I've given this hotel 12 years of my life. You're going to destroy me over her. Naomi's gaze never wavered. No, you destroyed yourself. One guard gestured politely but firmly. Mr. Cole, this way. He shoved his chair back, sputtering curses, but the words were drowned in the hush of the lobby as he stormed out, red-faced and broken. The heavy door closed behind him with the weight of finality. Naomi let the silence sit for a moment before she spoke again. Security, she said, looking at the two guards. I don't hold you personally responsible. You followed instructions. But hear me now. Following orders is not a shield against accountability. In the future, when a guest is calm and simply asks for policy or a supervisor, you will not treat that as ground for removal. Understood? Both men nodded quickly. Yes, ma'am. Naomi's eyes softened just a little. Good. Consider this your first coaching under my ownership. She turned toward the front desk. Chloe. The young receptionist froze, color draining from her face. Why, yes, ma'am. Naomi's tone was measured, not cruel. You laughed when your manager stomped on my card. You suggested it was dirty. That tells me where instincts lie. I believe people can learn, but I also believe consequences matter. So here is your choice, a formal reprimand and mandatory bias retraining. Or you can resign tonight and walk away. Chloe stammered, eyes darting to the guests still watching. I'll take the retraining. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Naomi nodded once. Good. Words matter. Remember that. Her gaze shifted then to Jamal, the bellhop by the elevators. You stood close when you didn't have to. You watched, and I could see you wanted to intervene. That takes courage. For that, you'll receive a commendation and a bonus. And if you're interested, there's an opening for shift supervisor next month. Apply. I'll make sure your name is seriously considered." Jamal's eyes widened. He nodded, almost speechless. "Thank you, ma'am." Naomi finally turned back to the glowing screen of executives. "We aren't done. Tonight was about one manager, but the rod is bigger. This hotel, this entire company, will change starting tonight." Gregory Marks frowned. "What exactly do you have in mind?" Naomi leaned forward, her voice ringing with finality. "Systemic reform, guest fairness protocols, bias training that actually means something, transparency, and accountability tied directly to leadership bonuses. I'll draft the specifics before morning. But understand this. Luxury doesn't mean exclusion. Not anymore. As long as I own a single share of this company, no guest will ever be told they don't belong." The words rolled like thunder, settling into every ear in the lobby. And in that moment, every single person, staff, guest, guard, knew they were standing in the middle of a turning point. The conference call ended, but the echoes of Naomi's words lingered in the air like electricity after a lightning strike. Ethan was gone. Chloe sat trembling behind the desk. The guard stood stiff, chastened. Jamal lingered near the elevators, shoulders squared a little taller now. Naomi stood, the eyes of the lobby tracking her every movement. She wasn't just a guest anymore. She wasn't just a victim of humiliation. She was the owner, the authority, the truth come alive in flesh and voice. "Gather the staff," she said. "Tonight, we rewrite this hotel story." Within an hour, the staff of the Crestfall Grand crowded into the back conference room, some still in uniforms, others pulled from housekeeping in the kitchen, their faces tired, wary. The night had been long already, but the tension in the air kept them wide awake. Naomi stood at the front beside Sophia Alvarez, the hotel's general manager, who had rushed back pale-faced and shaken after being summoned by Victor. Naomi didn't raise her voice, but the room listened as though the walls themselves leaned closer. "You've all heard something happen tonight," she began. "Let me tell you plainly. A guest, me, was refused service, humiliated, and told to get out, not because the system failed, but because bias filled the gap where judgment should have been." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Housekeepers glanced at one another. Kitchen staff frowned. They had seen things, too, moments they had pushed aside as just how things are. Naomi continued, "This is not just about one man. It's about a culture that let arrogance and prejudice pass as professionalism. That ends tonight. We are making changes. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now." She outlined the reforms, her voice precise. Guest fairness protocol. No guest will be denied without documentation. And a second verification. Confirmation override. If the system glitches, a guest confirmation number is enough. Escalation will be immediate. Bias and escalation training. Not a boring video. Real scenarios, real testing. Fail, and you will not serve guests. Empowerment. If you see something wrong, you speak. Retaliation against staff who raise concerns will mean termination. Transparency. Every quarter, fairness metrics will be made public, not to congratulate ourselves, but to hold ourselves accountable. Leadership accountability. Bonuses will now depend on fairness, not just revenue. She looked around the room, eyes sharp. Luxury does not mean exclusion. It means excellence in how we treat every single person who walks through our doors. If you cannot meet that standard, you cannot work here. For a long moment, silence. Then Marta, a housekeeper with streaks of gray in her bun, raised her hand. "Ma'am," she said softly, "what about when supervisors punish us for speaking up? Some of us, we've seen hours cut. Shifts change if we complain." Naomi nodded. "That ends, too. An anonymous hotline will connect directly to corporate. And I promise you, retaliation is a fireable offense. No exceptions." The relief that swept through the room was palpable. Jamal stepped forward, voice steady. "Ms. Carter, I've worked here 5 years. Tonight was the first time I felt like someone at the top saw us." Naomi's expression softened. "And I promise you, Jamal, you won't be invisible again." By dawn, the Crestfall Grand was transformed. At the front desk, A fresh sign had been posted in elegant lettering, visible to every guest who approached. If you have a confirmation, you have a room. If you have a concern, you have a voice. If you have a story, you have our attention. Everyone belongs. Naomi watched as the first guest of the morning filtered in. A weary woman, clutching a crumpled paper confirmation. A young man in scuffed shoes who looked nervous stepping onto the marble. Anna, a clerk brought in early from the morning shift, smiled at them both, tapped a few keys, and said warmly, "Welcome to the Crestfall Grand. We're glad you're here." And they were. In the lobby, whispers spread quickly. Some guests were shocked at what they had witnessed the night before. Others nodded approvingly, murmuring that they had never seen an owner take such a stand in public. The story would travel, through word of mouth, through journalists who had caught wind of it, through the silent testimony of staff who would never forget what they had seen. By mid-morning, Naomi stood once more in the lobby. Reporters had gathered after a press release quietly circulated from Victor's office. Cameras clicked. Microphones hovered. Naomi faced them, standing tall under the chandelier that had glittered over her humiliation hours before. Now it glittered over her triumph. "When power hides behind prejudice," she began, her voice ringing clear, "it often disguises itself as policy. Last night, that disguise was ripped away. I was humiliated not because of an error in the system, but because someone decided I didn't belong." She let the words hang in the air before continuing. "Here is my promise. At the Crestfall Grand and at every property I own, belonging will never be questioned again. We are implementing systemic reforms to ensure fairness, transparency, and accountability, not as a PR stunt, not as a bandage, but as a permanent change to our DNA." She looked directly into one of the cameras, her gaze fierce, unblinking. If you own a business, ask yourself, who do your rules protect and who do they exclude? Rewrite them if you must. It is not weakness to admit you've been wrong. It is leadership. And to every person who has ever been told they didn't belong, you do. You always have. Her voice softened, but the steel remained. This hotel belongs to you, too. The lobby erupted in quiet applause. Staff first, then guests, then even the pianist at his corner. Cameras flashed. Journalists scribbled. And Naomi Carter stood in the center of it all, the living proof that justice, when wielded with calm authority, could be louder than cruelty. That evening, as Naomi finally settled into the Skyline suite she had been denied the night before, she looked out at the city skyline. Her phone buzzed with messages, board approvals, staff thank yous, news headlines. But the one that mattered most was from an unknown number. Just 3 words. "Thank you. We belong." Naomi smiled faintly, set the phone down, and whispered into the quiet room. "Yes, we all do. If this story moved you, if it made you angry, tense, shocked, and finally satisfied when justice was served, let your voice be heard. Comment wherever you're watching from, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Because together, we can keep rewriting the narrative one story at a time.